there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, a master life coach and self-worth coach, as well as an author, speaker, and my favorite thing, being your podcast host today. As always, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest here today, and some of it might be triggering for some of you. So just I want to send out that little warning there, but it'll be worth it if you stick through and really hear the story and hear where he is and how he's overcome. And I think that's the whole point of this, is relating to people who've been where we are and being able to have hope that we can get through it too. So I want to jump right into it because his story is very involved. So this is Charles Smith. Hello, Mr. Charles Smith.
Hello, Maureen. Thank you very much for having me on here.
Absolutely.
I seen the name of the website of the podcast, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Todd knows.
I know.
Dog.
Your dog, Todd. I know. I love that when you sent that in your initial message. That's fantastic. So we always talk about here on I Never Knew, we talk about our knee story, and we have several knee stories throughout our life, obviously. Where something brought us to our knees and we felt like we couldn't go on. And reading your story, you have so many. So let's start off with the beginning of how your life started to where you are now.
Okay. My life started here in Worcester, and my father had multiple nursing homes. He had land in a couple different areas around here, and I was wanting for nothing. And then one day, he suddenly lost everything, and nobody knows why. Nobody living knows why. And at that time, my grandfather, in order to keep us housed, had to put up a duplex. If I could see through this wall, I would see the duplex that he had to make for us. And we lived in that for I think 5 years, and then my mother passed away when I was 6, and then my father moved us out to Van Horn, out to Arizona. My book 10 Homes in 11 Years is about that time.
10 homes in 11 years is what he just said, listeners. That is a lot of instability, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when I was 11, my father passed away in Van Horn, Texas. And I watched him pass away. I woke up that morning. Me and him shared a bed. We had a really small house. Me and him shared a bed. And I remember waking up, seeing him making coffee, and I'm like, something's not right. So I asked him if I could stay home from school. He said no, because of all the moving, you already missed too much. And I went into the bathroom and I self-induced vomiting with my finger. And I went back and told him, hey, I just had sex. I want to stay home. Said, okay. So at that point, we dropped my sister off at school, who was a couple years older than me, and then we went to the store, and he passed out on me in the store, and um, the store clerk knew my father and knew that he was a diabetic, insulin-dependent diabetic. Gave him orange juice. I was able to get him home. When we got home, he passed out on me again, and then I went over my neighbor's house to tell them, to ask if I can get a ride to the hospital with my father. And when we got to the hospital, he passed away with me holding his hand.
Wow. Isn't that crazy that at 6 years old you had that intuition to say something's not right? I have to
11.
find. Oh, you were 11. That's right. You were 11.
Yeah, yep.
Oh
When my
my.
mother died, I was 6. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. I mean, anyone under 18 just having that intuition and that feeling, losing a parent, my gosh, and then losing both parents. I mean, I can't even imagine how lost you must have felt at that point.
I, according to my sister, when I was writing 10 Homes in 11 Years, I went to her because I forget a lot what happened in my youth. And she reminded me that I didn't speak for the first 6 months that we were back here in Massachusetts. I was in that much of shock.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And then growing up, I was really vengeful towards the world because I could get any. My grandparents were rich. I can get anything I wanted, but the one thing I wanted I couldn't get, and that was my parents back. And I acted out at every corner that I could, and it turned into, when I got older, it turned into drugs and alcohol. And at that point, I was addicted to crack cocaine around between, I think, 15 to 19. I was addicted to crack cocaine, and my aunt that raised me and housed me, she told me to get out, get a job, and don't come back, which was pretty much saving my life at that point. And I went and I joined the military, and I told her I'll be out of your hair in a month.
Wow.
And
Was that a good thing? Was that a good move for you? Because I think at that point and being so young, between 15 and 19, I know my ex-husband joined the military at that age. When we were young and dumb, and I was pregnant, and it gave us structure. Do you feel like that really got you back on track?
for the most part, at that point, yes.
Yeah.
I still had a ways to go, but that was my detox off of crack cocaine. And yeah, at that point, I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and part of my PTSD comes from the military because I was in a tank accident.
No.
Yeah, the tank blew up with me inside it,
Oh
and
my
my
gosh.
gunner and my BC with me inside it. The turret blew up, and all I remember hearing was yelling and screaming, and I, from what I'm told, I ran out of my hatch, which was over here. My guys were over here. Opened my hatch after I let down the back of the Bradley that I was in, and went and got my guys out, and then I just sat there. And then at that point, I didn't have a full memory of anything that happened for a couple days.
Oh my goodness.
Like you remember getting up this morning. I didn't have a solid memory until that a couple days later.
Wow. And
And
that
yeah,
was from the actual brain injury from the explosion. And I mean, I would
yeah,
imagine.
because it was so loud and
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
traumatic.
shock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can only imagine. And I want to revisit the fact that, you didn't speak for those 6 months after your father died. I think, and this is, I'm not your therapist or anything, but I
Mhm.
think you have been through so much trauma that I think your reaction is sometimes to just go inside. And that sounds like even with that brain injury, you just kind of went inside like that protective mode. Do you think that's true?
I think so. Yeah. The way I looked at it, Tom Cruise in Top Gun,
Mm-hmm.
when Goose died, he didn't want to go back in the cockpit. That was me for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I did have memory, when I did, fully functional again, I looked at the cockpit and I was like, uh-uh,
No.
no,
And no one could blame you.
no,
Absolutely no one could blame you. People who get in car accidents don't want to get in a car and drive again. So no one could
yeah,
blame you there, right?
yeah, exactly, yep, yep,
So you did 3 years of active duty.
yep. 3 years of active duty, 5 years of inactive ready reserves.
Okay, cool. So
Yep,
Carson,
yep.
Colorado. All right. And then where did we go after the military?
After the military, I came back home for a little bit, and I ended up living with some friends when my uncle that raised me got sick. He got cancer, and I pretty much couldn't handle it. It was like losing a father all over again,
Oh, my God.
And I remember seeing him only a couple times because I was just so beside myself. And my uncle and my grandfather passed away. Uh, I think it was a month apart. It was like 2 years after I got home from the military. And
Wow.
yeah, yep, yep,
I'm so sorry. It just kept going for you. I mean, it just kept going and going and going. I mean,
yep.
and how did you deal with that or not deal with that? Did you go back to your addictions, or how did you function after all of this not dealing with it?
Well, I didn't go back to my addiction, and a lot of people ask me why, but I don't know.
Good.
Um, I did start cutting on myself. I was in such a dark depression that
Hmm.
I started cutting on myself, carving on myself, and that was to feel something other than the pain that I was feeling. And then that ended up in a suicide attempt, which led to homelessness. Yep,
Wow.
yep.
I mean, and in this time, all of this stuff that's happening, had anyone suggested, getting help, getting therapy, going to counseling, anything like that to help you deal with any of this loss? I can't even imagine where your mind would be with all this loss.
Well, at that point, after my suicide attempt, I was rushed to the hospital, and then I was rushed to a a veterans hospital, and the veterans hospital, um, I seen counseling there for a couple days,
Hmm.
and then after I got out of my homeless situation, like there's homeless on the streets, homeless, and then there's homeless without a home of your own, and you're living in like veteran shelters and places like that. I was homeless on the streets for a bit, and then I found shelters that I could get into. And at that point, they helped me to get therapy, which I'm still getting from the VA to this day, 20, almost 20 years later.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that they offer that, and I hope the VA, gets a lot more. I feel like that is, a primary thing in our healthcare system for vets. I think that has to be there first and foremost, besides the physical, I understand, but really that
Mm.
mental help for us to keep us healthy is crucial, because it just has these spider webs that go off to so many other areas of your life. So
Oh yeah,
so
definitely, definitely.
and I know, let's see, you had mentioned that the doctor had said that they were amazed that you were even alive. Is that is that what they
Yeah,
said
when when
they
I
did?
when I when I came back, or when I after my suicide attempt, which was a bottle of sleeping pills,
Okay.
entire bottle of sleeping pills,
Mm.
I was rushed to the hospital, and that's when they said, "Wow, I'm amazed that he's still alive because of the bottle that I just took a few hours before." I was sleeping for a couple hours before my friends found me,
Mm.
and if they didn't come in the room at that night, then I'd probably be dead.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Through everything that you've been through, I we all know now that you are not meant to go anywhere, and you were meant to be where you are today, which is, we're all grateful that that's what happened, and I'm so proud of you for getting the help and continuing to get the help. So this is the real main thing, is not knowing that you had PTSD. When you finally got diagnosed with PTSD, were you just like, oh, all the pieces come together and fit? Now I get it. Now I understand, right?
yeah. It was definitely an eye opener, and yeah, I the doctors told me that I had it since I was 6,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time I felt like I was a social outcast, and nightmares and all that. And hearing that was like, all right, now I know what is bothering me, because I was told I had ADHD, I had this, I had that, but nothing ever connected, you know. But when
Right.
I was told about the PTSD, it connected. I was like,
I,
okay,
I love that you bring awareness to the fact that you don't have to be in the military and get blown up, although in your case, part of that was even in the military, but also there's starting from age 6 and not really processing it, and everyone that you really cared about seemed to pass away. And I can't even imagine where your mind or your heart was as far as trust goes. Did you fear that everyone you love is going to go away? Is that kind of part of your PTSD?
yeah, it still is to this day. Like, if I have someone in my life, I want to keep them in my life. I don't want to, you know, have them leave my life, and it's still like that. Um,
Sure,
yeah,
sure. I mean, they
now I have
formed
a
you.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm. From the age of 6, and it just kept going and going and going, and that's your, it's such a ingrained belief because you hadn't seen anything different. And I just, wow,
right,
I mean, kudos to you to be able to have those coping skills. And yeah, that's, this is the beauty of seeking therapy, whether it's a life coach like myself or a counselor or a therapist. The thing is, people
hmm,
think one day I'm going to be cured. Like, okay, Maureen, when am I going to be done coaching? Is it 6 months? Is it 3 months? No, I have people that have been doing this with me for 3 or 4 years since I've
oh
started,
yeah,
and it's like maintenance, because your life changes and you go in different stages, and with it being ingrained in you since 6 years old, it may never go away, but what you've learned is how to cope with it, or prevent panic
right.
attacks, or the anxiety, and all those things, good outlets, ways to release when you get the stress. So I just think that's so fantastic for you. I just love that. What would you say to others who think PTSD is only like being in the military or wartime?
We all have our own wars. We all have our own battles that we fight. Um, I had a cousin who passed away in 2016 when I was doing my crack cocaine. I was running with him, and he went into heroin, and I went into the military.
Oh,
And he ended up passing away in 2016 of an overdose, so they say. And he had his battle that he fought and he lost. You know, we all. I work in addiction recovery. We all have, all my clients have battles that they're fighting, their own, and a lot of them have PTSD from various events that happened in their lives. It doesn't mean like if I wasn't shot at or blown up or this or that, then I don't have PTSD. It must be something else. No, like me, my mother's death was the spark of my PTSD.
Yeah, yeah, and
You know,
listeners, those of you that have been in abusive situations, when you're
mm-hmm.
abused, whether it's your family of origin or whether you were in relationships where you were abused, like myself, that causes that PTSD because it's a continual state of survival, of fear of not surviving. And that's really such an impactful thing that ingrains itself in your mind, and to prevent you from moving forward into thriving when you just are day to day wanting to survive and know if you're going to, and then you think there's something
Right.
crazy about you and all that stuff. But we're not crazy, guys. Everybody has their own war, just like Charles just said, and I love that so much. So for your
Mm.
fellow veterans who are out there and maybe homeless or maybe having addiction, what do you say to them? How do we help those homeless vets? How do we help them to get in and get some help?
Get help, like the saying in the VA goes, it takes the strength of a soldier to ask for help.
Mm,
A lot of people think that it's weakness if you get help. Like last year, I think it was, I was on a podcast in Australia, and their their town's police made the lady shut down the podcast because it was talking about first responders and PTSD. Because
what?
they didn't want it to get out that first responders can get PTSD. Yeah, I was like, I did one of the last interviews with her, and I'm like, I am so sorry to hear that. That's
Oh my
horrible.
gosh. It
It's
really
just,
is. You'd
yeah,
think
it's the total
today,
opposite.
yeah, you would think with all the awareness today and talking about it and how beneficial it is to talk about it and be in communities that can help one another. Um, that's
Right?
so backwards, to shut something
Yeah,
down and pretend it doesn't happen and put their heads in the sand isn't going to fix it. It's not going to change. And I agree with you. It takes so much strength to find that help. I tell all of the clients that call me for the first time, we have a discovery call, and the first thing I say to them is, do you realize you've already done something to help yourself? You picked up the phone and made a phone call. And that's
mm,
your first step to saying, I realize there's something that I have no control over. I realize there's things that I want to change that aren't working for me in my life. So I always give them that initial, you've done something. So just wanting the help, just finding a way to the help is strength. It takes brave people to do things that are hard and uncomfortable, right?
exactly. Yep, yep.
Yeah. And you think military, they sort of teach you not to show emotion. They teach you to be, very stoic and just get the job done and put all that other stuff
Hmm.
aside. As an ex-army wife, familiar with the military. And of
Yep.
course, this was back in the 90s when he was in the military and I was with him. We were in Germany. Um, and it was the same thing. It was almost like that, don't ask, don't tell policies. And, it was just so
Mm.
antiquated back then. And we've come a long way, thank goodness, in the military where you're allowed to now say, hey, I'm having some mental stuff. I need some help. And the resources
Yeah.
are there, right?
Yep. Yep. A
Yeah.
lot more than they were when I was in the 90s. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank goodness we're moving forward, people. We can celebrate that. I love that. So, oh my goodness. So
Yep.
from losing your entire family from to being homeless and fighting the addiction, I just, oh my gosh, I love that your life now has come together, and I want you to tell us really what was that turning point where you said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this, and I want to do something to help others, to be different, to be the change I want to see in the world. Tell us how you got to that point.
It was when I was in veteran shelters, and I could see all the other veterans that were around me. That were even before that, people people that were on the streets with me. But it was just finally getting it through my head that I'm not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I my pain is mine, but a lot of people have their own. You know,
Yeah.
and I have the saying, "Share your scars." You know, because um, that's what I do in all my books and all my talks, everything. I share my scars. You know, and that's how I started out, and then I started with a nonprofit that I wanted to get going, but that didn't get going. It was it was to help veterans and their families because a lot of abuse was happening at the time. A lot of people were coming home from wars
Mhm.
and with PTSD and all messed up, and the um, the abuse came with it. You know, yeah, and so my nonprofit that I wanted to make was called Karma, and it was being a bodyguard to the families and helping out the veterans, help them get the help that they need. You
Wow.
know, but that didn't work out because I couldn't get the funding for it.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, what else can I do? And I started, this was when I was out of my homeless situation, about 5 years. I, um, I started, writing my books. I made them into programs, and after that, I yeah, that that was my. I
We're
don't know
losing.
if you can read this, but
No, it's blurry. We're losing some internet connection here. It's getting a little spotty.
it
Hold
says,
on.
yeah, I seen that.
There you go. What does that
It's
say?
tip the scales in your favor.
Oh, I
Tip the
love that.
scales in your favor. I made it. You can buy them on my website.
Oh,
But
wonderful. We're going to get all that information too.
yeah,
So you started writing your book, and being an author myself, it is so cathartic. I think it is just so freeing. Did you feel like writing the book was so freeing for you to be able to get your stuff out finally in that way?
it was. Yeah. Um, but as I say that, I have a lot of people asking me when I'm going to put out my full biography, and I still haven't had the cojones to do that.
Well, you gotta, yeah, because you'll have to revisit all that stuff again, and that is not an easy thing. I know people think, oh, just write down your story. It's no big deal. It is a big deal when you
Yeah.
rehash that trauma. That's a hard thing, revisiting that trauma. And we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves by reliving it because, like you said,
Mm.
most of us who've been through anything traumatic, we blocked a lot of it out. And when you're writing a book and you want to put the details in, man, your brain brings it all back. It's in this storage locker. and it's a hard thing to
Yep.
do. And then I've done interviews with podcast guests who it's taken 10 years to write their book, because it was so
Oh,
tough
yeah.
to revisit that
Hmm.
stuff. What I love is that you started
Yeah.
working as a private investigator and a security consultant. How was that? How did you like doing that?
I liked that. I really loved it. Um, that was right after, well, after my homelessness situation.
Mm.
I did that, and it was good. I went to school for criminal justice. I went back to college, and my what do you call it? When you go into work for free
Intern?
for internship, yes,
Mhm.
was with a private investigator.
Ah,
And
how
yeah,
fun.
yep.
That's great. That's a great field for you. And I love that what I call, for your PowerPoint. So your PowerPoint is
Mm,
like picture a target, and that bullseye is what do I know? What am I good at? What am I passionate about? What can I make money
yep.
at? And I love that. I actually helped someone who was an ex police officer and also ex military.
Mm,
That's where we went with helping him in my business coaching start a PI business, and he's doing really, really wonderful in Arizona. I'm so proud of him. And that's a hard
oh
thing to
wow.
do too.
Mm,
Starting a business is a scary, risky thing to do. And I love
yeah,
that you went into it and you went back to college. I think that gives people hope that you just never give up. You never stop trying. Keep trying to find something that brings you joy, that you're passionate
yeah,
about, that you can make a difference, right? Can you elaborate with me on that?
yeah, definitely. Like they say, if you love what you do, you never work another day in your life. And I still do investigations for missing persons in the Massachusetts area. Even though I'm not licensed, I look around. Um, and I for my cash in job, I work as in addiction recovery. Um, yeah, which I work at Aware Recovery Care. I don't think they're in Arizona. They're in a few different states, and we have the clients for a year. And yeah, instead of a detox or a CSS where they go in and out, we have the client for an entire year, helping them out with their recovery, and we have a really good track record.
Oh my goodness, that's so
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, 1 year is amazing because it scares me, being that I was in the medical field, the mental health, and I've
Mm.
also had family members who, had to have some emergency mental health care. And the way that it's just kind of this fast food in and out, oh, we keep you for 72 hours and then we throw you back out there, or we'll keep you for a week until your insurance runs out and then we throw you back out there. The
Yeah.
fact that you keep them for that year, because I always say, listeners, that you have to, anything that you want progress on, I say relationships for relationship coaching, is you need to know someone for
Hmm.
a year, for every season, to see how strong you are and how healthy you can be in that year. I cannot believe you guys do this in 1 year. I can imagine you have success because it's such a commitment and a focus,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Wow. Is it all inpatient or is it also outpatient?
It's all outpatient. I just went um 30 miles to go see a client right before this. 30 miles to go see a client, 30 miles back.
Oh
You
my
stay with the
gosh.
client for an hour and talk about coping skills and similar to what you do for work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we go home and that's it. We see them 1 hour out of the week. So
Wow.
and we're always available through text or whatever if they're struggling.
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Oh, I love that. What do you think are
thanks.
the biggest challenges in helping people come out of addiction recovery or who are in addiction recovery?
Finding their triggers
Okay.
is one of the most difficult ones.
Mm.
Yeah, I have a client right now, that the one that I went out to see today, that when we don't know what his triggers are. Even when he wants to drink, he drinks, and that's it. You know, teaching the client coping skills, and one of the most difficult things is to help them mend the relationships. Because as an addict myself, in my active addiction, I didn't care who I hurt, and I didn't care what I stole, what I did, it all didn't matter at that time.
Yeah, part of those 12 steps with AA and NA is about
Yeah,
making amends, right? And that's
exactly. Yeah.
and I love I don't mean love, but I find it intriguing the finding the triggers. Because I had never really thought about that because we are as humans very cyclic and very pattern minded. So we do a lot of things
Mm,
in a pattern, and those trigger findings would be really great because then you can head it off, right? So when it comes to addiction, there's something,
yeah. Yeah.
and even with overeating or anything else that you find that you have sort of an addiction to, it could be anything. It could be your phone, it could be social media, it could be, you know, smoking cigarettes, it could be whatever it is. What's the trigger that happens just before you do the thing? And I really like that.
Mm,
That's I've never heard it said, and that's really intriguing. That's why this is so fun because
yeah.
you can have 100 addiction counselors on, and everyone's going to give you a little nugget that's different from everybody else. And you gave us
Mm,
that today. And I think that's great, listeners. Find your triggers. So, whatever your addiction is, or whatever the thing is that you feel is out of control in your life, find the trigger, the thing that you do before you do that thing. And that sounded really terrible the way I just described that, but you guys know what I
it
mean.
made sense, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. What is the most rewarding thing about what you do?
Seeing them towards the end of the 1 year that we have them, and like reminiscing about what happened through the year and how much they've changed through the year. That's the most rewarding thing. Yeah, just helping out someone that, like my cousin, I wasn't able to help him, but,
Yeah, changing a life.
yeah, yeah.
It's underestimated, and I agree with you. I always say I'm the voice my younger self needed, and that's why I
Mm,
became a life coach and helped women find their self-worth and their self-confidence and get out of self-hate. And I just feel like it's so rewarding when we do something that's of service to others. It's so healing to us, isn't it? And
yeah,
I say that all
definitely.
the
Yeah,
time. That's one of the things that I tell
it is.
my clients is I always say go volunteer somewhere because you can't sit and wallow in anything you're doing when you're out there helping someone else. It's just impossible, right?
Yeah, yep, yep. Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Keep active, right? You have to do
Yeah,
things.
you got to keep active.
What do you think are some good suggestions for outlets? Because I know a lot of us have bottled stuff up or we've never really been able to talk about it. Besides therapy, coaching, counseling, what do you think are some good outlets for people when they do recognize some triggers or something that they know they're going to do that they don't want to continue doing?
Like write it down.
Mm,
Journal. You know,
yeah.
if that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that a counselor gave me once because I was having a really tough time on my uncle's death. It's like write him a letter with everything you want to tell him. And I looked at him like he had three heads. I'm like, the guy's dead. You want me to write him a letter? And he's like, put it in a put it in a bag and put it on his grave, and it'll be or read it there with him, at the gravestone. And I did, and I felt so much better afterwards. So write it down because it gets from here to here, and that gets it out of your head.
Yeah, it releases the regret and resentment that we can have, and no matter what it is, even if the problem hadn't resolved itself, or you're estranged from someone, just being able to describe it in words. I remember when I started journaling when I was recovering from my narcissistic relationships I had been in and abused. I remember, and I'm not a writer. Which is weird that I'm an author. I'm just not I'm more of a talker. Obviously, here I am, got in trouble for talking in school, and this is what I do for a living now. But I remember when I started journaling, I had to just get it out, like you said, and I could write whatever I want, and I could tell someone off, and they were never going to hear it, but I could tell that person off that they aren't allowed to do that to me ever again, and you mistreated me, and it was so cleansing just to release it. And then it was anticlimactic in the real world after that, because I let it out, I got it out, so
exactly.
There wasn't this need to go confront anyone with anger or escape with alcohol or drugs, right? Isn't that the key? Is create a life you don't want to escape from.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why a lot of us use drugs and alcohol is to escape.
Sure. Absolutely. Or comfort, overeating. Sugar. There's a sugar addiction, caffeine addiction,
There's exercise addiction.
Yeah, right.
Mountain Dew addiction.
Yeah. Seriously, we all need something. I mean, that's just who we are as a species. We need to make ourselves feel good. We need to self-soothe. And if we can do that in the healthiest ways, obviously that's better. We don't want the drugs and stuff, but I'm not going to kill someone for drinking coffee, because you know what? We're all going to have a crutch, whatever it is. But I am a firm believer of eat all the stuff. I just think eating good food is such a, within moderation, don't overeat, but, eat the food, because I truly believe everything in our lives is surrounding meals, parties, Super Bowl, you got food, pizza, wings, barbecue, Memorial Day, barbecue, everything. Valentine's Day, you go out to dinner. I think eating the food and it brings people together, and it gives us connection. And I'm just a fan of eating the food. So that's going to bring me to my question after I get all of your information of where we find you. So what is your website? Okay. What are your books? Here's your moment to shine. Tell us everything.
Alrighty. So I can be found on lifelongexperience.net. Lifelongexperience.net.
Love it. Okay.
Yep. And that's got all my books, all my products, like my cup here. My books range from addiction recovery to PTSD to positive thinking, unlocking resilience. I have my 10 homes in 11 years. I have a book on what makes you happy, what makes you, fulfilled. Because I got that idea when I was when I heard about Robin Williams. Funniest man alive, dies of depression.
Yeah.
Money is not the root of happiness.
Yeah.
It's just not.
He also died of a form of dementia that was going to eventually turn into where he wasn't able to have the quality of life. And that is the reason that he decided. And I kind of understand that. And a lot of people, if you have a terminal illness, that's a hard thing to fight through. That's a hard thing And a lot of us would
No,
want
yeah,
to
definitely.
we want to give up and say, I just want to have quality of life. If I can't have quality of life, I don't want to be here. But there's a lesson in everything. There's an experience in everything. Whether we're learning or teaching others, we have to go through it. We just have to find a way to push through and find that positive. So how many books do you have out?
Yeah.
You have a lot of
I had to think about that for a minute. Yep.
What?
Oh, and I didn't even mention one of my newest ones. It's a children's book about bullying.
Love that.
And yep.
What's
And
that called?
It's called Safety in Motion. The star of the book is Sam. He's a robot, and he doesn't identify with any race, color, creed, or anything like that. Because I want the reader to feel that they identify with him, them. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to have at least one of your books up on the promo. And then also we're going to have your website up there. And I thank you so much for being here. You're such an inspiration. I cannot emphasize how honored we are to have you tell that story, to be brave and to be vulnerable and to pay it forward and to say, I want to help others. I'm not just going to fix what happened with me. I want to make sure I can help others fix what happened with them as well. And they're not alone. And there's a community of people and resources, and reach out. That's what we're here for. Like, hold hands, guys. We're all here in this together. And of course, if you have any suicidal ideation, please call 988 and get some help. Okay, guys. Thank you again.
I got one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Speaking about Robin Williams and the suicide and all that, I say this in every podcast, so it wouldn't be right if I missed it.
Okay.
I have an 11-year-old son. That suicide attempt happened like 20 years ago. If I succeeded in the one thing that I'm thankful that I've failed in, he wouldn't be here.
That's right.
I wouldn't be here talking to you. I wouldn't be a multi-time author. The things that do happen wouldn't have happened. And when something happens in your life, you need to push through it, because through the darkness is light. And one of the biggest things that I had to deal with was acceptance. Like accepting who I am, accepting all the things that happened in my life. But once I did, it was like opening up the doors to a better life.
Yeah. That's a recurring theme from every guest that I've ever interviewed, is that acceptance. And once we accept ourselves, we love ourselves. And once we love ourselves, then we go out and we make a difference in our lives. We change our lives and we change others' lives. And that is, I just think that is the key. If there's anything, just accept and love yourself and realize I came here to do something, and whatever's happening to me, I needed this experience, and I'm good. I'm going to grow from this and bring it forward. So thank you again. Well, again, heavy stuff. So I always end on a high note. And I think with you, since we were talking about food, I have a bunch of little segments that I've done over the 145 podcasts that I've done, episodes I've done so far. And there's like 3 different ones, but I think with you, we're going to do that tastes funny. So because you're from Boston, or no, you're around the Boston area, which is one of my absolute favorite places. We stayed in this beautiful little boutique hotel right at the finish line of the Boston Marathon last August. I absolutely love Boston. But tell me, what is the weirdest thing you eat that people would just gross out on?
On a regular basis, or something that I've eaten once?
Either one. Either you eat it all the time, like if you put ketchup on your cereal, or you've tried, like my son tried a chocolate-covered scorpion, Anything. We're wide range here. So what you got for me?
Okay. When I was in Cuba, in the military, we had Cubans and Haitians in camps.
Okay.
And the Cubans kept on escaping and coming back. And they went out to get a rat. The big rats. And one time my curiosity got the better of me. And they were cooking the rats. So I was like, what's that taste like? And they gave me a piece, and I ate it. And it wasn't all that bad, actually.
I was waiting for the taste like chicken.
It tastes, well, yeah, that's the,
I love
the
it.
fallback. It tastes like chicken. But, yeah, that's the weirdest thing that I've ever eaten in my life.
I love that. I missed that show with Andrew Zimmern where he went around the world trying all those bizarre foods with Andrew Zimmern. I don't know if you ever saw that show.
Yep. Or Fear Factor.
Yeah. Fear Factor. I couldn't. I actually, fun fact, I actually applied for Fear Factor when I was in my mid 30s. Sent in a bikini photo, the whole thing. Never got called back. I would be out of it because of the cockroaches. Cockroaches are the absolute, I think, worst creatures on earth. And you guys all know how nature and how much I love every living thing. But cockroaches, I can't jump on board with that. So that was a fantastic story. Listeners, that's going to do it for this week of Inc. or I Never Knew What My Dog Did. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hanging in with us. Thank you for loving our guest, Charles, and we'll get that information to you, lifelongexperience.net. And then don't forget to look for all of his books and his children's book, Safety in Motion, as well. As for me, you know where to find me at lifecoachmaureen.com. And my books, My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and My Dog is My Relationship Coach, as well as my children's book, My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me, encouraging mindfulness, emotions, and it's okay to be scared and practice self-care. So that's all on Amazon. And then don't forget our doggy boutique online, mydogiseverything.net, where we have homemade healthy treats and lots of fun things there, safety items, paw washers, all that good stuff. And we are doing a lot of pop-up shops all around the Austin area. So if any of my Austin y'all listening here from Texas, if you're in the Georgetown, around Rock, Pflugerville, Austin area, look us up at some of the events. So anyway, love you all for being here. And thank you. Share this. Leave your reviews. Positive stuff is much appreciated. Let's increase the community being there for one another. And like I said, it really helps us when you give us those 5 stars, and it helps us build and have more ability to reach out to more people and help more people. So I love you all. Until next week, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and most of all, take care of those furry babies, and you must adopt and not shop. Love you all. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.